I'll stick with the future.
Okay. Hi, I'm Isabella.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Devin.
And we are Team E. We were tasked to hire 3 assistant front office managers for Juniper Hotels, and this is our deck showing our process. So here's a brief overview of our key points, and you can probably see it better if you have it printed. So our executive summary, as I stated before, our task was to improve the current staffing and selection process of Juniper Hotels. There were quite a few problems that we observed, and probably the most important was that Juniper's current selection process included no structured interviews, and we believe that played a crucial role in their previous poor hires and low ROI. Thus, our solutions tried to address those problems. For the external and internal situation, we assumed that Juniper Hotels is located in a competitive location. There's potentially a large applicant pool nearby with the 2 local university and colleges, and also that it's a candidate's market. For the internal situation, we have 3 assistant front office manager positions to hire for, and we prefer that the candidates have previous hotel experience. And lastly, we also want to increase the ROI for the hires. For the situation relevance and core issues, it basically comes down to we believe that the improvements to the selection process will result in better hires and therefore a higher ROI. For the stakeholder analysis, we observed that there were 5 key stakeholders: hotel staff, customers, hotel owners, potential candidates, and universities. There are some similarities between the stakeholders and there are some similarities between the stakeholders, such as better hires would positively benefit all of them, although there are some differences, such as in the way that the capacity of how they'll be affected by the new managers, and ultimately we want to balance the needs of all the stakeholders.
So the next couple slides, we're going to go through the through the options we presented. So the first option we have is going to consist of editing the current job description, followed by collecting unsolicited resumes, as well as purchasing 2 resume books from both universities, then sending 2 recruiters to campus to conduct 14 structured interviews with candidates, and giving those 14 candidates both personality and cognitive assessments to better understand them, and then bringing the top 6 candidates based on scores to on-site interviews, and which will consist of structured interviews. So the total for that option is going to be $10,900. Option 2 consists of editing the job description, collecting unsolicited resumes, as well as purchasing resume books from the 2 universities, sending 2 recruiters to campus to conduct 12 unstructured interviews, and then giving those 12 candidates written skills assessments to better understand their knowledge base, and then bringing the top 6 candidates based on scores on site for final round structured interviews. The total budget for option 2 would then be $8,400. So when we were evaluating which option would be best for Juniper Hotels, we looked at a couple key things. The interview type. So structured interviews will ask the same question to every candidate, while unstructured interviews is more about getting to know candidates more in a more casual environment. And the interview is where we will be able to predict and judge who will be a good fit and the right person for the job. The second criteria we looked at was the assessment type. So cognitive assessments are meant to measure general intelligence, personality assessments are meant to measure certain human personality traits, and then the written skills test will measure job-related skills and knowledge. The next one is the application source. So we are assuming unsolicited resumes demonstrate candidate interest and in a role, and that they may have more experience than the resume books provided by universities. So resume books would be the collection of resumes provided by that university. And then by collecting resumes from a variety of sources, the applicant pool will be higher, and this will help with the core issue of making Juniper Hotels a top choice for recent graduates. The fourth criteria we looked at was the cost of the options. Option one was $10,900, and option 2 is $8,400. So we ended up choosing option 2 for Juniper Hotels, and this because it will produce a larger applicant pool through both unsolicited resumes and resume books. We will be conducting initial unstructured interviews on campus to the top 12 candidates to see who could potentially be a good fit with the organization. And then when we administer that written skills assessment to better understand job knowledge base, we will invite the top 6 candidates based on scores to on-site interviews. So the goals of this plan is we want to ensure that Juniper Hotels is hiring the best candidates. This will ensure that the person is much of a job fit as person organization fit, and then producing a favorable ROI of at least $5,000 per hire. And this goal will be marked as successful if after 1 year the 3 hires produce an average of 6 or higher on the performance appraisals. So this timeline will take about 2 months. Week 1 will consist of editing the job description. Weeks 2 and 3 are reviewing the resumes. Week 4 is conducting on-campus interviews and giving those written assessments. Week 5 is making decisions which candidates to bring on-site. Week 6 is conducting the on-site interviews. Week 7 is deciding which candidates to make offers to. And then week 8 is making those offers and giving the candidates 2 weeks to make a decision. So some merits and drawbacks of our plan are that merits include both conducting both structured and unstructured interviews will allow for the opportunity for rapport building as well as assessment of knowledge base, and plus costs are kept low in order to produce the most favorable ROI. A drawback would be the timeline. The longer the timeline, the more opportunity for candidates to lose interest. And administering only one assessment is also a potential drawback because if we administered more, there's more potential to gather more valuable information on the candidates. So in summary, our plan will consist of editing the current job description to be more candidate friendly, that the budget will be about $8,400. The new selection and staffing process will take approximately 2 months to complete. And the goals of the new process will be to have hired high potential candidates that produce the favorable ROI and benefit the key stakeholders.
Okay, so for this next chunk of the presentation, we'll walk through the application and implementation of our plan as well as the results achieved. So, when looking at resumes, we were looking for applicants who have had previous hospitality experience. Although this was not required, this really allowed those candidates to stick out to us as recruiters. We also looked for objectives. This showed that candidates had intrinsic motivation because cover letters were not required. So we just thought that these applicants took an extra step and showed more interest in this position. We conducted blind reviews by having an outside source remove the names from the resumes to eliminate or to decrease the amount of bias and discriminatory action. Each recruiter looked over the resumes and noted the ones that they felt like were best qualified, and those are the ones we selected. I think that we got like 3 out of 6 candidates from using that method, and then the other 3 methods.
I can't grab the trash here.
The other 3 methods, the other 3 candidates came from recruiters who had about recruiters who selected.
What good comes out of
Sorry.
an old man, right?
Oh God, this is
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the other 3 candidates were candidates who were on 2 of the 3 recruiters' lists, and then we discussed those candidates further. So changes that we made to our plan was in our initial plan. We noted that we would receive candidates from two resume books from Western and Northern University, as well as unsolicited resumes, because we anticipated these unsolicited resumes just being candidates of more interest with more experience. During the resume review planning, we decided not to use unsolicited resumes just to keep the environment of the testing and things like that the same. So for our plan, we plan to budget $8,400, and we did exactly that. We don't think we would make any changes to our plan because our plan produced a favorable ROI. The candidates we selected was Bruce, Connie, and Michael. We selected them because the applicants' requirements and qualifications were all met. We picked the highest performers from the unstructured interviews and the assessment to move forward. After that, that was 3 out of 6 candidates, and for the other 3, we filled candidates who had higher assessment scores and average interview scores. For the last 3, we placed less emphasis on the unstructured interview score because the validity coefficient only shows a moderate relationship with the predictability of job performance. And yes, we do believe that our plan was more efficient than the previous one. It was more expensive. However, the expenses were spent strategically to find the candidates who produced a favorable ROI. We collected more resumes, but conducted less interviews, and as well as administered a written assessment. So, for the key learnings of us recruiters, mine was that job analysis is the first step in an evidence-based selection decision process. So, conducting a job analysis allows us to document work-related characteristics, tasks, duties, competency levels, and responsibilities necessary for a particular position, which allows us to better predict job performance.
Mine was that the essence of selection truly is prediction, as we want to distinguish between high performers and low performers and who's going to be doing well on the job compared to other candidates. And we really did take into account the scores that the candidates had on the different assessments that we administered, because we really wanted to maximize the true positives and minimize the false positives.
Mine was that no matter how much testing and prediction you do, that there will always be outliers and true positives and true negatives do happen. And that in addition to hiring someone, you're more than just filling a void. You need to take into consideration key stakeholders and what's happening in the outside market as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you, Bori.